And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House! Yeah!
Democratic voters in New Hampshire went to bed on the night of the Iowa caucuses with a manic vision of Howard Dean in their heads. A rolled-up sleeve Dean, a fist-pumping, red-faced Dean. The next day, they saw a very different Dr. Dean here in Manchester. Dean's odd exuberance after having placed third in Iowa was red meat to the Fox News crowd. So he began the last stretch of the New Hampshire campaign by dialing it back, speaking coolly and analytically from behind a lectern.
Those of you who came here intending to be lifted to your feet by a lot of red meat rhetoric are going to be a little disappointed, although we may get to some of that before we get done.
Dean gone wild became an issue, but the pundits who raked him over the coals missed the other big body language story to come out of Iowa. John Kerry, the supposedly aloof and reticent New Englander, had managed to connect with Iowa voters in a big way. So in New Hampshire, it's worth remembering that when it comes to gesture, cause and effect are hard to calculate. So maybe we should start with something more simple, a catalog or field guide to the basic gestures of the campaign trail. The handshake is the most elemental. Amy Vanderbilt's complete book of etiquette assures us that the handshake says as much about our personality as the way we walk. And she has a good list of the basic handshakes. The bone crusher, the limp and damp one, the straight arm brush off, the octopus which invades your personal space, and the pump handle, the big gee golly it's nice to meet you handshake. It's cold and flu season here, so I wasn't sticking my hand out for anyone. But from a distance, I'd nominate John Kerry and Wesley Clark for the most distinctive handshakes. Kerry moves through a room like Abe Lincoln on a cushion of air. He's an intimate shaker and a master of the warm handshake plus, the shake with an embrace or a left arm add-on, or a double arm touch that doesn't require any shake at all. There's something smooth about his greetings that comes through in his public speaking gestures as well. It's like a robot ballet. Every joint in his right arm is integrated, and he rarely does a hard point or slice or jab.
We believe in lifting people up. That's what our
At a Wes Clark gathering on the night of President Bush's State of the Union address, I got to see a rare example of the high-speed, promiscuous, multiple handshake. Each shake initiates the next. This is a fast version of the law of the jungle you learn at cocktail parties. The best way to get out of a bad encounter is to start a new one.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate you.
The handshake is all about greeting new people. For recognizing familiar faces, the master is Joe Lieberman.
Let's go, Joe! Let's go, Joe! Let's go, Joe!
Perhaps it's because his campaign is struggling. He needs to show that he's got friends in this New England state so close to Connecticut.
You've all become family to me over the last year. I look around this room.
So Lieberman is big on picking out faces in the crowd. I don't think he invented the point with a thumbs-up gesture, but he uses it a lot. The great thing about this gesture is you don't actually have to know the person for it to be effective. After the greetings and acknowledgments are over, there's a whole choreography for public speaking. Even at the toned-down speech he gave in Manchester, Howard Dean showed his distinctive style.
I can tell you it's a lot more fun to win, and we better win in New Hampshire if we're going to change the system. Thank you.
His most intriguing gesture is something between a point to heaven and a #1 sign. It's a perfectly rigid digit pointing straight up with an extraordinary amount of tension in the hand. I don't know how effective it is. How many Americans want to see a doctor coming at them with one of those?
Demanding the right to have free and fair elections.
The polar opposite of Dean is Dennis Kucinich. He's the minimalist speaker, hardly ever taking his hands off the podium. All of his emphasis is done vocally, by making rhythmic pauses between every few words. That yields a cadence which can be incredibly boring. Unless you set it to music, which the Kucinich people have.
We're not locked in.
Perhaps the weirdest document of the current campaign trail is a Kucinich techno mix video.
Of our children. Move into the 21st century. The American people are showing that the state of our union is confident and strong.
The candidates began the last week before voting in New Hampshire under the shadow of President Bush's State of the Union address. The candidates are supposed to look presidential, but they have to suffer a lot more physical contact than the president. All of this touching is something between an anointing and a test of their emotional availability. In fact, looking presidential may be the wrong thing at this stage of the race. Almost all the gestures one sees are about availability, listening, openness to touch. People were all over Joe Lieberman like a bad suit. Presidents want to spend their time sending messages rather than receiving them, and so physical contact reflects the basic argument of the election. The president is accused of being too presidential, of bringing too strong-willed, a bring-it-on guy. And the candidates bask in populist fervor, but are characterized as too open, too inconsistent, or volatile. After New Hampshire, perhaps there'll be a reversal. You'll see a lot more of the president glad-handing the unwashed and tailoring his message. And you'll see a lot less of these guys getting groped like melons in a supermarket.